Okay folks, the next video we're going to show you how to fit the arm onto these two posts. You remember we drilled this hole at the end of the arm when the board was still flat and we were drilling all these holes. This hole here, due to the nature of green woodworking, wood moves as it dries. So rather than hope that these are the right distance apart, we're going to take the measurement from the chair now. And I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to pop the arm on the front post and then I'm going to bring it round to where it's going to sit. And I'm simply going to come to the side here. And now from here, I'm going to mark where the line needs to be. If I was to come at 90 degrees to the edge of the arm, I'm not accounting for the fact that we're coming on a circle. So I'm just going to come slightly off 90 degrees, draw a line. Next thing I'll do is I'll measure that line. Halfway across it is where the hole's going to go. And that's where our hole goes. Okay, so next up we need to drill this hole. Now ideally the hole will pass through at the same angle that this tenon comes out, so I'm going to use this tenon to guide my drill bit. But first thing I need to do is just pop it down on the floor so I can see what I'm doing. So, as we can see, we've got the arm in situ so that I can use this upright here as a reference for my drill. I'm using a 14mm drill bit, which gives us a little bit of leeway, and also this is going to be held down tight by the crest itself, so this isn't an important mortise and tenon joint at all, it just simply needs to pass through cleanly. So I'm going to line my drill bit up with a look from that side. I'm level, and I need to look from two angles, because of course if I line it up on this side and do this, it looks right from this angle, but you need to look from two planes. So I'm going to look from in front, from the side, and I'm going to drill slowly. So what I'm doing now is I'm putting my finger underneath where I'm drilling, and I'm going to drill slowly and wait to feel the lead screw. The second I feel a bit of movement in that wood, I'm going to stop drilling. Please don't drill into your finger. Okay, I can feel the lead screw come through now. I'll reverse my drill. I'm going to turn this over and do the last bit of drilling out on the bench. Okay, so I'm going to finish drilling that hole now. I've got two choices. I can turn it over and drill from behind, or I can just carefully drill into a piece of scrap from the same side. I'll do that, and this is to avoid tear out on the other side of the arm. There we go, nice clean hole. Okay, so the next step, we're going to cut some of the excess off the end of here to make the last part we do a little bit easier. Going to measure back 30mm back from the centre of that hole we've just drilled. I wouldn't go any less than that, just to avoid any splitting. I'm just going to put a dot there, and then I'll use my ruler, draw a line, and I'll just cut that piece of excess off. Okay, so I'll just bring the chair up for the next step. Okay, the next thing we need to do is just balance out the difference between this plane at the top of the bead and the plane on the bottom of the arm, because as we put the splay into the arm, it's just turned that. So what we're going to do is take a small ruler. So I will run this level by eye with the top of my bead here, and I'm just going to draw a line across the bottom there, starting from the bottom corner here. I don't want to remove any of this thickness here, so I'm going to start my line from there. And draw it across. Now this technique of taking measurements as you go is very normal when you're using natural products like wood. You might think you'd need to use a load of engineered stuff all to the right dimensions, take it all off your machines and put it together. Now, you can do that with MDF and plywood and things, but when you're using a natural product like wood, it's good to take some of your measurements from the chair. So this will be what gets removed, as will this. So the next thing I'm going to do, now I'm at the shave force, is I'm going to cut down to those lines that I just drew using my draw knife. So this is the bottom plane. It's important that I don't come down below that line. This one's just a reference. The idea now is just to taper from fat to slightly thinner, because as we do that, it's going to just give a drop from the handle back to the crest, which is very pleasing on the eye, and just takes a bit of weight out of this as well. From an aesthetic point of view, it's nice to keep this bevel on the outside. So just be nice and careful not to blend that in. Okay, so I've finished that. It fits nicely. These two surfaces here meet nicely. I've done the same with the other arm as well, and obviously I've made sure that this thickness here is the same on both sides so that the crest sits level on them. The next stage is to dry fit the crest on. First thing I'm going to do is I have to make these tenons the right length. If I pop those on there, you can see that sticks out too far. Now we know the holes that we've drilled into the crest are 35mm deep. This is sitting on the arm, so I'm going to make these 33mm long to stop them bottoming out inside the hole, because then you can't tap your crest on. So the next thing I'm going to do is measure 33mm up from where the crest and the arm meet. And I'll repeat that on the other side. I'll take it apart, I'll chop these bits off, and you'll see us again after that. Okay then, so I've sawn those to length. As you can see, the crest fits nicely. So I'm just going to take it apart one last time and get these 3 spindles fitted. Okay, so I've just tapped in my posts and my spindles. I'm going to hold a ruler across the tops of these tenons. I'm going to do this from behind so I don't get in the way of the camera. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark these tenons slightly lower than these, only a millimetre or so, just so they don't end up bottoming out. And then I will cut them off there where I've marked them. And we're very nearly gluing it together. Great, now before we attach these to the seat, we need to make sure they actually fit into the holes we've drilled for them. They just want to be a push fit. If you're squeaking or it's a tight fit like that, if you've got to do that 5 times over, you're not going to be able to fit your crest on. So I'll show you a clever way of just taking a feather off the outside. I'll draw a couple of lines around my tenon like that. And then I'm going to methodically remove those lines with a spoke shave, so that when I've made my way right round to the end of and there's no more line to take, I know that I've taken an equal amount from every point and it should still be round. Okay, those are the last 2 bits. There we go, I'll fit that into the crest. And as you can see now, that makes a nice push fit. I'm not having to really struggle, but also it's not wobbling in there. It's a nice fit. So we are now ready to attach all our uprights into the seat. Right, now I'm going to move on to making the hardwood pegs, which will hold the spindles into the crest and the spindles into the seat as well. Going to use a contrasting hardwood, a nice light piece of ash against this elm. That is purely aesthetic. Use whatever hardwood you like. just make sure it's nice and dry. First thing we're going to do is split out some tiny little billets to make these pegs from a piece of dry ash. They're going to end up 5 by 5 millimeters, so I'm just going to aim to go a little bit bigger than that. So I'm doing this with an old carving knife that isn't very sharp at the moment. You could use your axe, you could use a chisel, just whatever you use, just do it carefully. So I'm doing this by eye to get to just over 5 mil. You're perfectly welcome to measure it if you need to. Ooh. Okay, so I'll take one of these over to my bench hook. So this is my 5 millimeters-ish piece. I'm going to use a 5 millimeter drill bit as a reference so I can cut this to 5 by 5 millimeters. To do that, I will take a nice big flat chisel. Okay, so I'm going to lay my chisel on top of the drill bit. I'm just going to carefully push towards the back of the bench stop, and that cuts at 5 millimeters. And just check again, see the bit left there. I'm going to turn that 90 degrees, pop that back in again, keeping my fingers right out the way. One 5 by 5 peg. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a tiny taper on the end of the peg so it goes into the hole nice and easy, and I'm going to do that with a chest lever grip and a carving knife. There we go. So on the end that we're going to be hitting with a hammer, I'm just going to put a little bevel on there as well so that it doesn't split while we're hitting it. There we go. Okay, so I've made 10 of those now. These are going to be used for keeping the spindles in the chair. I will put them to one side and they will come in use right at the end when we're just gluing everything together.